Welcome to Talkkcade, a podcast based on reviewing WWF, ECW, and WCW content on a week-by-week basis from a first-time viewer's perspective. I'm AdvyDeven, first-time 90s wrestling viewer and co-founder of WatchaMania. Please no hints or spoilers in the comments if you'd be so kind. We're currently in the week of June 23rd to June 25th of 1994, which is still technically the same week as last week, starting with WCW Clash of Champions. But before we get started, I just want to ask that you drop a thumbs up on this video as it helps us a lot. Do subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell, it's always on for notifications. Talkkcade always seems to come out at some random hour of the day or night, and not always all on the same one, day or night. So you want to catch it when it drops. That all being said, though, let's dive into Clash of Champions. So, we're welcomed to the show by Tony Schiavone, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and B&G and Okerlund, and sure enough, we get another OJ reference right off the bat from Heenan. I guess this is around the time of the trial based on everyone wanting to make jokes about it. We go down to the ring to open up with the WCW Tag Team Championship match between the Nasty Boys and Sullivan and Jack. I wonder if Paulie realized that this show was happening before Hostile City Showdown yet. We got Dave Sullivan and Jack in Kevin's corner for this one, still on crutches. I'm not sure why this match is a standard match, as it feels like the story is being told a bit out of order here. And that being said, it's probably built on the basis the Nasty Boys complained about how they lost their titles. So, like, fine, we'll give you a normal match, so there's no fuckery to screw you over with. That being said, Kevin Sullivan must have brought ECW rules over from Philly because this tag match was all over the place. Save for weapons, this might as well have been a tornado tag match. It did smooth out after the first few minutes. I guess the lads just had to get the hardcore out of their systems. At one point during commentary, Schiavone mentions that he was waiting to see if Sensuous Sherry came down to the ring during this match, possibly for Kevin Sullivan or even the Nasty Boys. In true Cactus fashion, he left everything on the table in a title match, 24 hours out from a dream match with one of the most dangerous men in the industry at this time. Also, he took a back suplex from Sags on the outside, and Cactus grabs his left shoulder at every chance he gets afterwards. Not just on this show either, but we'll go over that in a bit. On the outside, things got a little messy when Sags tried bullying Dave Sullivan, mainly between the brawling not being the most cohesive, but as Sags comes out after Dave, he gets double teamed by Kevin as Sags goes back into the ring and gets dropped with a double arm DDT by Cactus Jack for the win. Fair match, decent to open with. It's unfortunate that Cactus got hurt in this one, I'll say. I hope it's nothing too serious, considering that he does indeed still have this match the very next night at Hostile City Showdown. I really hope this results in the Nasty Boys moving away from the titles for a bit, but I get the feeling that they'll have their hands on those belts again before long. Scorpio and Bagwell literally held the titles for a day before the Nasty Boys took them back last time. So we will see. Up next, we return to the re-debut of Ray Traylor, formerly the Big Boss Man, now just Big Man. He's now known as the Guardian Angel. And this match was good for what it was, and that was a match for the sake of getting over Ray's new persona. I'm interested to see where it goes, and or if it gets dropped like Bischoff dropped Cactus Jack's Amnesia storyline last year. Not much to say about this match. As a feeling out process went down. Tex laid in a few strikes with Ray counting up to 3 before firing up and finishing the match with a Boss Man Slam. A Man Slam? An Angel Slam? A Rebound Sidewalk Slam. Name pending. Tony Schiavone called it a spike pile driver, but I feel like we all know that's wrong. Did exactly what it needed to do in getting Ray refamiliarized with the audience. So before the next match, we get several different perspectives of Hulk Hogan being escorted into the venue, accompanied by police and security that would make the president himself look unguarded. Hogan is in his in-ring gear. I got WrestleMania 9 flashbacks. We cut over to commentary, and it seems that Jesse Ventura has taken the seat from Heenan for some reason or another. Heenan comes back later, but just for this match, for whatever reason, I guess Keenan walked off or whatever to do the whole bit. I don't know. We cut over to on to the next match, which was the WCW World Television title match. The rematch, rather. And I believe on the May 22nd to 28th edition of Talkkcade, when reviewing the first match between Zbyszko and Regal, I said something along the lines of, if Terry and Tully weren't on this card, it would be my favorite match. Well, Terry and Tully wasn't on this card, so therefore, this TV title match was my favorite on the card. I somehow had a feeling that Zbyszko was going to retain, but Regal winning the title back didn't surprise me. Probably because it made so much sense booking-wise. This match was fantastic, for obvious reasons. I somehow had a feeling, so Regal came out in a powdered wig, and the red old jacket that I don't know the name of, Confederate jacket, I guess. He was fully embracing British stereotypes for heat, it seemed. Didn't quite get it. Someone, feel free to say in the comments if you better understand the intent of this, providing that it's not, spoiler-based in any way, shape, or form. If this comes out, in the storyline later, I don't clarify that. Regal got the jump on Zbyszko and got the early portion of this match in a very aggressive fashion that we don't normally see out of Regal, I'll say. So it's almost like he's trying to take some of Zbyszko's advice here. And Regal, these two really fought, and I loved it. The scrapping between these two is awesome, and the grittiness of the two men that loathe each other. At one point, I believe Heenan said this really valid line that it was a fight. They were working in a few wrestling moves here and there, but they are just wrestlers that are fighting right now in that ring. And I'm paraphrasing here, but yeah, was a very apt way of describing this. Other than that, pretty much everything that I've said about their matches beforehand applies here, all the same. Regal stole the win for the first time in their third bout here, winning back the title he lost a few weeks back on Saturday Night. With the assistance of Sir William, Lord Regal reversed Boston Crab attempt into a roll-up. Larry flopped his foot onto the top rope, but didn't keep it there, and Regal is a two-time television champion as a result. And I don't know how many times I'd have to see it before I'd get tired of it, but I feel like I can watch these two square off anytime. So if there's a fourth match coming, gimme. So we go to the top of the stage where Arn gives Dustin Rhodes his answer. Arn has a couple of conditions, which essentially is that he be his old self. A more ruthless Arn Anderson. One that isn't PC. One that will slap his grandma and such. He promises that it'll get ugly, and there will be damage done in the process. He wants to be ECW Arn Anderson, but with better production value. Hopefully that means that when he turns on this partner, it'll be produced a bit more sensibly. A joke, but I would not be surprised in the least if Arn betrays Dustin and joins the Big Stud stable. This is for several reasons. One, Arn has been invited several times over to join them. And two, Barry is involved, or was. Behind the scenes, it is not looking good for him. Alternatively, because Terry Funk seems to be in with Parker's stable, we could see a heel turn done to reunite with Ric Flair and perhaps even Tully Blanchard if Slamboree wasn't just a one-off. I just don't see this team lasting no matter how hype Dustin tries to get us about it. Hopefully, they turn me around on it. I'm willing to have my mind changed, Up next, we had the WCW US title rematch between Johnny BB and Stunning Steve Austin, the latter of which fulfilled his promise in coming down to the ring alone. This match had a real rough, dusty finish. Could you call it a double dusty finish? It was wonky. There was more speculation as to whether or not Sherry would come out during this match, to which she did not. Also, they really cut Johnny short by not letting him fire off his bus gun before they hit Austin's music. Austin looked pissed coming down to the ring, and it showed. And it showed it with a pre-match taste-numbing slap to Johnny. It was loud. I do think this match was better than the one at the pay-per-view. Johnny Bad worked his pace this time around and got caught a few times for it, but ultimately had more of the match. Still, he did slow it down at some point, and that did catch up with him, ironically, letting Austin get some control eventually. Johnny got control towards the end, firing up, but when the ref was pulling Johnny off of Austin in the corner, Austin pulled out some, brick knuckles, or, this white padded thing, whatever they were, and gut punches Johnny and rolls him up for the win. Honestly, I found that clever. It wasn't the whole knockout shot, so, knock the wind out of you and then crunch you up. You can't kick out. I think that's a little bit more clever. A second ref comes down while he's celebrating and shows the other ref the knuckles being hit in Austin's armpit. He's holding up the title right here. They raise up his other arm. It just drops. And it was like, oh, and right as it drops, B-Bad rolls him up from behind, and that ref that revealed it, 1, 2, 3, counts it real quick. And there's no bell. But Johnny celebrates like he just won it to a raucous crowd, mind you. The crowd's going nuts. They loved this. But this was odd. I can't tell what the intent of this was exactly other than to pop the crowd. Maybe that was it. In which case, mission accomplished, but it still felt dumb from a logical standpoint. And that's not really WCW strong suit. I should get better at that, I suppose. Suppose for that sensible turn ain't go so sensible when it comes for Arn, huh? So the ref and commentary deliberate as we go to break. And we return to Hogan's very familiar but different sounding theme hitting, and it comes out to all the pyro and adulation. He hits his poses and then heads back a little bit to Gene for a chat. Gene asks him how he feels about the reception he's received coming to WCW, and Hogan puts over that despite having done great things like slam Andre the Giant, that this is the greatest day of his life. He reiterates that he is indeed going to chase whoever wins the world title unification match later on. And he gets cut off by Ric Flair on the big screen. Screaming Ric Flair is screaming. It was obnoxious, and he almost blew out his own voice doing it. Hogan said that this is what everyone's been talking about, and that the two greatest of the 90s are going to clash. Two greatest of the 90s. More like 80s. Look, I'll be real, but he needs to be too. He gives us the what you gonna do bit, and we go off to break again. Tell you something, counter was up by 2 in this promo, both by Hulk Hogan. Shock surprise. So we return to commentary, and we get a Freudian slip from Heenan, mistakenly saying Flair instead of Hogan in regards to Sherry having not come out, despite the main event being next. During the entrances, Heenan speculates that Sherry may have indeed picked Jesse Ventura. What a choice that would be. After the introductions and everything, just as the match is about to begin, Sherry comes on down to the ring with her face hidden, eventually revealing her Sting face paint. And did great for the swerve at the end, which we'll get into. I'll go over this one chronologically. First thing I really didn't like is how much commentary tried to make Flair out to be distracted, especially Heenan. They made a big deal about how much he's jeering the crowd and not focused on Sting. The first bit was all Sting trying to sell us that angle. Hell, Heenan straight up says that Sting has his number. Sting gets some great offense this match overall, so that did well in undoing some of that afterthought presentation that he's been fighting uphill against for a month now. Eventually, Flair got control and slowed the pace. He did his rope leverage pin over and over bit, and after he gave it up, Sherry called it out to the ref. I found this bit interesting in hindsight. Towards the end, Flair slipped out of the ring and Sting went for a vaulting body press on him. Flair pulled Sherry into his place to take the splash, and we had Sting alongside referee Randy Anderson checking on her outside. Sting gets bopped from behind by Ric Flair and pulled in, but the ref doesn't return until we have a drawn-out backslide from Sting to Flair. Sting goes back over to the corner to check on Sherry as she gets up, and Flair rolls him up with a handful of tights for the win. As everyone's caught up in the moment, the referee awards both belts to Flair as Sherry is dragging herself into the ring. Sherry and Flair eventually embrace, revealing that she was with Flair this whole time and that the Sting bit was a part of a setup. He didn't let it slip earlier before the match, but it could be seen as an honest mistake. The thing that threw me off is that she was literally calling out Flair's cheating to the ref, but upon a second look, it was only after he stopped the cheating. It was just a very committed ruse from the seams of it. This match was indeed a great showcase for Sting when all was said and done. My concerns about this whole thing remain, though. What does Sting matter to management's bigger picture? He was slept on coming into this match, had a great match, but will he come back after the title? Is there room in a Hogan title picture for him? Hopefully my concerns are ill-founded, but we'll see. That being said, he's on the tail end of a beating from both Flair and Sherry, taking a few nut shots and splashes respectively. Just then, Hogan starts running down to the ring. Oh no. Top babyface lost his title in the main event due to cheating. Gets beat down by the new champion afterwards. Hogan runs down. The PTSD was real. Thankfully, his Hogan in the Bank contract has not been renewed yet. And that being said, while Hogan hit the ring and did his shirt rip intimidation bit, Flair got out of there after only a couple of punches. Sherry tried sneaking up on Hogan with her purse, but Jimmy Hart and his megaphone made sure she couldn't. Hogan teased punching her with the finger wag and everything, but she slapped the taste out of his mouth. I'm gonna tell you what, it echoed. It was so cathartic. I tell you what, it was so cathartic. But yeah, after the slap, Flair drags her out to safety before Hogan could dive after her. Hogan helped up Sting alongside several other producers and refs. We take a break and return to Gene in the ring with Hogan, who is all fired up. Brother, what you gonna do? Says that in 2 days he's gonna bring a contract with him. I'm carrying that if he has to tear Ted Turner's arm off, I guess. I didn't put it in my notes, but off. And he says that he should end the myth and find out who the real heavyweight champion is. Hulk literally just determined that Flair is. He literally just won the belts. He just put the belts together. Okay, tell you something, counter up by 1 again. Hogan is at 3 thus far. Despite Flair becoming a 12-time champion, Hogan gets the show closing pyro, and woof, that ending was not it. The most interesting bit in who Sherry picked was pretty much overshadowed by Hogan's debut and subsequent intervention. Sting was made to look third tier, despite being the most loyal and homegrown of the 3. Something tells me that this is where WCW stops being my favorite of the 3, like it has been this year, pre-Hogan. Well, I suppose it's very symbolic that we move on to ECW, just like I'm having to do emotionally. So we open up to a shot of Philadelphia, where Joey Styles, returning to ECW, welcomes us to Hostile City Showdown. Hack Myers is the heel here, on his way down to the ring, up against Tommy Dreamer, who still does the heel bit of stomping out Myers' towel to try and get some support from the crowd, ironically. Doesn't work. The show, if nothing else, was very befitting of its name. We'll see throughout the show, trust me. Hack really tries dragging out the opening bit, and not for nothing, it worked out for him briefly, but this match was largely just a way to warm up the crowd. There were clips of Dreamer sucks chants from the crowd. Hell, Hack Myers starts getting some cheers and applause for his offense, which I found funny. The crowd is not about Tommy Dreamer here. I find that funny because just a few weeks ago on Hardcore TV, we were informed that he came in as a playboy of sorts that eventually earned the audience's respect. And don't sound it like here. Don't sound like it here, rather. Hell, Dreamer fires up a bit and tried a few pinfall attempts, and just as Hack shuts down Tommy's hope spot, we get a hack. We get hack chants. And it's just, this is why I'm going over all of this, because it was just so jarring to me. ECW is so bizarre sometimes. Eventually, Tommy wins with a super fly slash, and sure enough, the crowd hazes him for the win. And honestly, I get it. It wasn't the best. You don't open a show with a cool-down match, and that's what this felt like. I find it hilarious that Hack got over in this match out of spite to Tommy Dreamer, and I blame the suspenders if nothing else. I really think if he changed up his gear a little bit, he'd have a bit better of a time. So we move on to our next match as we cut to Donnie Allen in the ring. The crowd is giving him a lot of love just as Chad Austin starts making his way down to the ring. The comeback hit, or the lucky underdog, or whatever they called him the other week. He also gets a lot of love from the audience. And Tommy's got to be feeling like Squidward looking out the window at SpongeBob and Patrick. Only here it's Don and Chad, and the fun being had is simply being liked by the crowd. It looks like we're going to have a 1-on-1 match between the two, but 911 springs into the ring, and of course, is still after that ref from when Worlds Collide. It's the same ref who DQ'd him in that TV title match at the last Supercard. Gets choke slams, and then Donnie and Chad get some too. And just as 911 is about to do it to the ref again, Todd Gordon hits the ring, and Polly on the way in to bitch him out. And he gets some too for it. 911 rips him up and hits him with another, and Todd will not jump for shit. Understandably so, but it somehow made the choke slams look more painful. Dreamer comes back down to the ring, checking on Todd as the crowd is going friggin' nuts for 911. And you swear he doesn't want to be over with how he put himself in this position. That being Tommy Dreamer. He gets chokeslammed himself as Paulie and 911 celebrate with the crowd, who chants one more time as the pair heads out. I guess the heel bit, the heel heat they get is not giving them one more time. The crowd doesn't care though, but that was awesome. I love this whole bit. This crowd is full of savages by the sounds of it. They were relishing in the wreckage, carnage, and chaos that ECW indulges in, and really enhanced this whole segment. So up next, we got the dog collar match. And this match was probably the one I was looking forward to most, but I feel like it didn't live up to the hype. I had a few issues with it, and I think most of those would have been solved by the rules being established beforehand. So during his entrance, Tasmaniac blitzes the ring to attack Pitbull, but gets clotheslined by the chain as Pitbull and Jason saw it coming. Pitbull fought it on to Taz to start the match, much like Dustin did to Buck back at Slamboree with the bull rope. I also liked the bit where Pitbull threw Taz out of the ring over the top rope, not realizing that the chain would take him with Taz. Fun character moment there. Pitbull lays into Taz for a moment, but sure enough, Tasmaniac started beating and tossing Pitbull around on the outside, as he is known to do. They literally fight in the front row, practically onto the people. At one point, Pitbull takes the fan sign, their paper sign, and hits Taz with it. That was good fun. I laughed at it. And Taz sold it too. It's just dumb fun, I feel like. The fun soon got choppy. However, as we came to see it was a four-corner style dog collar match. We didn't even realize until Pitbull had hit the two corners. Styles on commentary really made it sound like this was how it was supposed to be. Just like this is normal. It wasn't announced or anything like that. So maybe dog collar matches were just like this back in the day? Not sure. What was really dumb was eventually Pitbull ended up hitting him with a belly-to-belly suplex and attempted a pinfall off of it. They got a 2. So you can win by hitting all four corners or by pinfall or submission. What? I guess that works. I feel like the four corners thing kind of gets in the way of the match at that point. I wasn't the most excited about the four-corner style, but we had just settled on how the match was supposed to be won, during the watch-along. And then they did that. So it's just like, huh? So we're sitting here trying to, figuring all this out while we're just sitting here trying to enjoy the match, thinking we already knew how it was supposed to be won. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was just Pitbull going for the pin on instinct and the ref didn't want to make him look dumb. But if that was the case, that'd arguably have been worse, right? At this point, Pitbull's character has been established as dumb, but this next bit felt cheesy, even though it worked. My main gripe was Pitbull hit what was essentially a jackknife on Taz that incidentally landed him on the chain, but instead of attempting a pin, the quicker way to win, he picked Tasmaniac up. He wrapped the chain around Tasmaniac's neck and went over his shoulders to try and drag him along as he hit the corners. And here's where the dumb peaks. Taz is hitting the turnbuckles behind Pitbull, and the ref is counting the touches for each man, so he's counting twice. One. Pitbull keeps looking at him, not sure as to why. Coming up on the fourth corner, Tasmaniac hits him with a nice half-and-half suplex, wins by pinfall. This match was admittedly underwhelming. They had me in the first half, but then the four corners thing came into play. And I see how it makes sense when you look at it, but it still just felt meh. I feel like if I knew how it was going to go beforehand, that probably wouldn't have gotten in the way of it for me. So almost immediately after Tasmaniac wins, a bald man in trunks of similar material to Pitbull runs to the ring and clobbers Taz. Joey Styles is like, "That's Pitbull 2! I haven't seen Pitbull 2 in years!" I'm sorry, what? Pitbull and Pitbull 2, the sequel, beat down Taz after the match to get some heat back, and I suppose establish the new team of Pitbull Squared. They put the dog collar back on Taz and throw him over the rope to hang him, while Pitbull, the original, lays into Tasmaniac with a chair. Worked safely, still yikes. Hopefully this leads to a Tasmaniac and Sullivan reunion, because I think that'd be a great tag team match if it was allowed to just go batshit crazy. So up next, we had Shane Douglas and Mr. Hughes facing off with Nazi D and Nazi Dumb. The Bruise Bros attack Shane and Douglas as they get in. Shane and Hughes as they get in for a brawl to start the match. Honestly, it'd be a better match if Shane and himself twice over against the Bruise Brothers. Not to knock Mr. Hughes, he's a fun promo, but not the best in-ring worker. I hate that these dudes, the twins here, are the faces, but hopefully they turn soon, given the implied business being done with Sandman. That being said, given what happens later with Sandman, I'm concerned that we'll only get them more over, and I kind of don't want that. But yeah, the brothers get the upper hand in the brawl, but as the match settles with the competitors in the corners, Hughes gets some work in on Nazi D. Shane Douglas tagged in, got a bit of work in himself, but eventually brawled to the outside where he had to use a chair from the crowd to even the playing field. It really was a match to put over the dominance of the Bruise Brothers, it felt like. The highlight of the match, well, at least the first half. The highlight of the match for me was Joey Styles discussing Shane Douglas's investments. First, he was remarking how Shane must be dropping a pretty penny to Jason for the services of Mr. Hughes. Then he went on to say that Shane must be saving the pretty penny, no longer paying for the services of Sherry. He states that she was no cheap date, and that she likes to hang around money. That, or much, much, much older men. Got a major pop out of me. I love that Styles just had to take a jab at Ric Flair like that. I almost thought it was coincidental, but then I realized that WCW Clash was in fact live, and the show was the very day after. The jabs then continue from Styles as Nazi D sends Shane over the top rope, and Joey goes, "That will not be a disqualification here in Eastern Championship Wrestling because this is hardcore." So at that point, Mr. Hughes hits Nazi D with a sidewalk slam, and the ref can't count what is very clearly a visual 3. And of course, it's clearly a visual 3. Never mind. It's a visual 3 because he caught up on the outside with Shane and Nazi Dumb. Nazi Dumb kicks Mr. Hughes in the head a single time after running in, and rolls over his brother on Mr. Hughes for a very delayed pinfall victory. Very deflating end to the match overall. A match that felt directionless, having a shit ending. I blame everyone but Shane Douglas, who was admittedly the best part of this match. By far, actually. Shane and Mr. Hughes are outraged after the match, bitching out the ref and the ringside camera and everyone else in sight. Mr. Hughes grabs the mic to demand a ref and I think restart to the match. Shane came over to hold the mic for Mr. Hughes while he did so. I cannot get over how classy I think that is, for a world champion to hold the mic for somebody else. Shane adds on to his, oh, yes. And you'd swear they just won the match with how they're carrying themselves. To be fair, they did have the match won. Shane's a true pro. I appreciate Mr. Hughes. I really do. Still, he needs good dance partners, and the Bruise Brothers ain't it. So from droll to drog... I knew I wasn't going to be able to say that first time, right? So from droll to dog shit. Up next is the Sandman versus Tommy Cairo. And it is harsh, but it's literally my two least favorite acts in this era in back-to-back segments. I'm going through a rough time here. Pray for me. Oh, yeah, that's cheeky. First off, the pole is way too tall. It's legit like 15 feet off the ground. Even on the top rope, you could barely reach it by a jump. You have to climb the pole. It doesn't help that all that's holding the pole to the turnbuckle is 4 wraps of blue duct tape. Sandman got a haircut for this match. The haircut I come to know him by in present-day depictions of ECW legend Sandman. It's been coming to my attention that this is a feud that really leaves a lasting effect on Sandman's career. Between the cane and now the hair, I see it. Sandman went straight for the cane and took a nice German suplex for it. I will say, Sandman is great at getting his ass beat. A moment later, Cairo tried a pinfall, and it took a good moment to understand that he couldn't win the match that way. Pretty silly of him. Eventually, they fought to the corner where Sandman tried to climb the pole, and at this point, we see just how unsturdy the whole setup is. Hell, the cane literally falls from the top of the pole and Styles tries to act like they didn't notice it. Back down on the mat, the ref puts the cane back in the corner of the pole, which doesn't matter at all because a moment later, Wynn pulls out another Singapore cane from underneath the ring and slides it to Sandman. And Sandman lays into Tommy Cairo to a major pop from the crowd, and the ref gets out of the ring calling for the bell. Even Styles can't tell if it's a no contest, a DQ, or a win. Nonetheless, Sandman shoves off Peaches to the side, who attempts to stop his onslaught on Tommy Cairo. Tosses Woman the legal cane, if you will, so she'd lay into Peaches as the latter attempts to protect Cairo from her body, with her body. This was another bad guy win situation, with Cairo getting a busted open shoulder. That personally blew my mind, as I've never seen a wrestler bleeding from the shoulder, though I get how it happens. I mean, I guess safe from glass, but from a blunt object, that's wild to me. Sandman grabs the mic and shouts, "Pay your bills, Tommy Cairo!" As you know, that echoes in my nightmares. And the crowd goes nuts for it. We get a "pay your bills" chant from the crowd. And on the watch along, I was just flabbergasted. I was almost scared. The cheers and adulation this man is getting for beating another man, for standing up against the disregard shown to his wife. But this is ECW, land of chaos and extreme, located in the city of brotherly hostile. Rules don't work for them, brother. Morals don't work for them, brother. I don't think I need to say any more about this. There are several episodes of this podcast at this point. I've made my feelings on the story clear in case anyone's still curious about my thoughts on it. We have a bit of Cairo reeling to his feet and eventually helping a crying Peaches out of the ring, giving the impression of get knocked down but get back up again. Fortunately, this is not the story I want to see embrace the Chumbawamba vibes. So we get a cutaway to a recap of Paulie's beef with Terry Funk and how it led to him paying Public Enemy to go take out Terry, while they ultimately resulted in Arn Anderson turning on him and losing to Sabu and Bobby Eaton. He sought out the aid of his brother Dory Funk Jr. to help. Which leads us to this match, which took its time to start for the sake of soaking in the moment of Dory Funk in the ECW arena. Well, that, and his reunion with the brother inside the ring. This match had a fun start to warm up the crowd to Dory, who didn't really need it as he was already getting a solid reaction from the crowd. 55-year-old Dory still got it with his misdirect rope runs and sneaky drop downs. Dory Funk got some strong lifters to show off, really keeping the Public Enemy at bay for the first half of this match. Public Enemy started getting in some offense as things spilled to the outside, and coming back in, Dory Funk and Rocco Rock respectively have their own chairs laying into the other one's partner, ending in a clash between the two chairs. It was kind of badass in a way. The fight goes to the outskirts of ECW and back, with Public Enemy finally getting the best of them, at a point that Terry is bloodied and beaten on the outside. Paulie and 911 come down to the ring. Mayhem breaks out as 911 choke slams the ref, and Public Enemy both cover Dory at once. Paulie does a quick count, and the bell rings. Okay. Terry slips to the outside and fights with Rock in the crowd. Grunge takes advantage of the chaos to choke out Dory with his wrist tape. Dory with his wrist tape. I'm sorry, it's like 1 a.m. for me, y'all. Actually, it's like closer to 2. They get up and take turns doing more stuff to each other. Grunge even tried pinning Dory again. It was silly. Feels like they're just out here doing shit, y'all. It turns out that Terry and Rocco fought up to the Eagle's Nest, and I shit you not. Rocco Rock gets shoved over the balcony and falls to hang by his feet on a tied-up cord, just stopping short of the ground. The Funk Brothers treat Rocco Rock like a punching bag and fend off Grunge as they head out. This match started off nice, but when it broke down, it broke down. It was just hardcore fighting after the match. Kind of got that funky non-ending. Definitely not the end of this feud. Interested to see how the stakes can be raised from here, save for, of course, a title match, but that's probably where we're heading. Next, we had a TV title rematch as our co-main event, and while it wasn't surprising, I found it interesting that Rocket Rebel found some way to get caught up in his hubris, like all of Mikey's opponents before him. Rocket Rebel said that he was going to come into this match and beat Mikey after one move. He did not do that. He jumped him before the bell, walloped him, took his time in executing multiple moves, and still didn't walk out with the title. At one point, Mikey finally got a spine and dropped Jason, who hopped up on the apron. Rocket Rebel got pissed about that and laid into him with a chair one good time before tossing him back into the ring. He held up Mikey so Jason could get Mikey back with the chair, but Mikey ducks, resulting in Jason laying out Rebel. Mikey drags Jason into the match and eventually rips off Jason's jacket, and he takes his time with it just enough for Rebel to lay him out with a chair shot from behind, and he pummels Mikey Whipwreck. A moment later, Tasmaniac hits the ring and gets some revenge on Jason and Rebel for earlier in the night. Not long after, the Pit Bulls hit the ring and get the numbers advantage once more. At this point, the match was thrown out, it seems, and Mikey keeps his title once more. All thanks to Tasmaniac, who gets dismantled by Jason's stupid but semi-sexy stable. Joey Styles implies Rebel was disqualified for the interference, but I think it makes more sense to just rule it a no contest because of everything that happens. Because the interference was happening quite a bit before it seemed like the match was thrown out in capacity. This was alright, and it seems like Mikey is starting to toughen up a bit, so I hope to see that go somewhere for Whipwreck. This was cleverly done to keep the title on him once more, and I'll give them credit for pulling it off yet again. I am just going to say it, but I'll also say again that they are very close to running this joke into the ground. It's like right there. But they keep finding creative ways to keep it going. But it can't keep going for much longer, so something's got to come to a head there. Up next was the main event of this card, the interpromotional dream match between Cactus Jack and Sabu. Definitely a great match, and for one I never knew happened, let alone on these terms. Sabu got a personalized introduction from Paulie, his specialty. Cactus Jack came out to Born to Be Wild by Steppenwolf, which Peacock dubbed over, of course, but more notably, came out with his arm tucked like he's got an issue, which was the same thing he was doing after that back suplex on the outside from Jerry Sags, I believe, the night before at Clash. Something I didn't catch on the watch-along was Joey Styles acknowledging that injury. The match kind of starts with Sabu unloading wild kick after wild wild kick after cack. Yeah, never mind. And this match really was one of a kind, though. Especially in this day and age, like in terms of American hardcore wrestling. Cactus really played this match on defense because of his injury, but that didn't stop this match from getting extreme quickly. It was wonderful seeing Cactus Jack being Cactus Jack while doing all of the classic ECW-isms. Hell, he took a frying pan from the crowd at one point, used it, and it just felt so right. This match also did a fantastic job of showing us that Sabu can do what Cactus Jack can do better than Cactus Jack can do what Sabu can do. And I don't even care if this injury is a work or shoot, because either way it enhances the what-if elements of the match. As often is the case with Sabu, things got a little wonky, but he does very efficiently put Cactus Jack through a table at one point. The second time attempting to do so, however, was less smooth as he almost ate some guardrail, which he insists on making a pointless obstacle, because death-defying. Unfortunately, we don't really get to see this match play out definitively, as Paulie clocks Cactus Jack over the head with his phone, while the latter has Sabu in the corner, and Sabu falls on the Cactus for the win. 911 picks up Cactus as Paulie lays into him with the phone. Cactus tries fighting back, but after a wicked chair shot to 911 and taking the brawl to the outside, Mr. Hughes runs down and attacks Cactus Jack to turn things around for 911. Shane Douglas runs out and pulls back Mr. Hughes as 911 continues laying into Jack, and the Bruise Brothers run out to attack them both. Not sure what that was quite all about. Sabu dives onto all of them, and the brawling carries on until he eventually just returned the pair of Sabu and Jack to the ring. Jack awkwardly goes through a backwards table in a funny spot and gets laid out flat on the table to take a moonsault. He then no-sells the moonsault and gets up and attempts a suplex on the table, the split in half table, to hit Sabu with. Which is a spot we've seen him do before, but not with a broken table. And man, was it funny. And they eventually just faded away. And we cut away to a sweaty and beaten Cactus Jack, who finally gives us that lengthy promo we know him for. He talks about the WCW World Tag Team Championship and how important of a title it was, but he spits on it and throws it down, saying it wasn't to him anymore. And that's because the three most important titles to Sabu, and those are being the most suicidal wrestler, the ugliest wrestler, and Jack Kevorkian's favorite wrestler. He mentions three paths that he can now follow, but the only one he really ought to is the one eliminating the competition. Really impassioned promo from here, and that just takes you by storm. I really can't put it into words without, going on and on and on. Paulie hurt Cactus Jack's feelings, because when he looked for the most talented man to take down WCW, he didn't call Jack. Miss Foley's baby boy is coming home. So good. We cut to Paulie with a 3-minute promo of his own. He goes over in extensive detail what Sabu put Cactus Jack through in this very match, while the latter only welcomed more. Never before has he seen a human being do these things and revel in it, and claims that Sabu has won nothing because of it because Cactus is still breathing. Says that the next time they meet, it won't be about who wins or who loses, but who lives or dies. And man, is that obnoxiously dramatic, but I love it. He reiterates that he's obsessed with the demise of the head office at CNN, and that Sabu will fulfill that obsession. Good promos to close out a fun supercard, and it looks like Cactus Jack is working with ECW a bit longer. This isn't an Arn Anderson situation, and you'll love to see it. Overall, the show was a good one. I appreciate a lot of what this card set out to do, even if not all of it landed. It felt very much like a building block show for what's to come. So, with that being said, we move on to WCW Saturday Night. And despite the fact that only my left ear enjoyed the show, we were in for a swift and smooth edition of Saturday Night this week, save for the contract signing segment, which was tense, if nothing else. The show did little to establish the next direction for a few things, but it was an easy watch nonetheless. And I say that knowing they set up half the pay-per-view card at a time, but several of those matches have a zero build to them. Well, I'll go over that a bit more as we get to that point of the show. So we go down to the ring after an introductory bit from Shivani and Heenan for a match between the Guardian Angel and Butch Long. This match was a bit slower than the one with Slazenger at Clash, giving Guardian Angel a bit more of a showcase. Probably best that way, as he was talking some mess to Vader in the camera in between moves, saying that he'll kick his butt like he did at Spring Stampede. Took it home pretty quickly after that, winning with the Guardian Angel Slam, name pending. After the match, Gene brings Ray Traylor over to the main set and gets a word with him. Guardian Angel mentions that he was directionless when Nick Bockwinkel stripped him of his badge, but the Guardian Angels gave him new direction. He challenges Vader to a match at Bash at the Beach, looking to see Vader prove he's the man he claims to be. He says the bottom line is 3 times throughout the promo. I appreciate the intensity and the coming around character-wise, but the repetition was a little funny to me, so I felt the need to mention it. Up next, we had some tag competition with Pretty Wonderful getting a relatively easy win over Barry Hughes and Todd Morton. Not much to say about this match from me. This was an enhancement match for Team Apathy, who let the other guys get a bit of work over them. I like the spot where Orndorff held the fella by his trunks, where he was backed into their corner. I'd never seen that before. Do that more in modern wrestling. It was just like back in the corner, just, I got a hand up his checks, holding him in the corner so he had to take a beating. Sorry, mustache tickling my nose. I like the spot where Orndorff held the fella by... Oh yeah, I just read that. Orndorff gets real vicious with Barry Hughes, who is the guy they single out successfully throughout the match. Paul Roma gets the win with a single finger after a spike pile driver from Warndorf. Good heel team to challenge for the tag titles. Just hope they don't win them is all. Sorry. Shivani and Heenan sent us to the CNN censor with Mean Gene Okerlund, who can teleport. This is so important, it has to happen at the headquarters for the parent broadcasting network of WCW. Not TBS, but CNN. This segment was an explosive clash of egos, in kayfabe, and in Hogan's case at least, out of it. Because Bash at the Beach is apparently going to be the greatest pay-per-view in the history of pro wrestling. Right. Relatively mundane entrances into this boardroom between the two men. Flair doesn't have the belts they say he has, and Hogan doesn't have the quality personality they say he has. So everything is up to par thus far. So yeah, relatively mundane entrances into this boardroom between the two men. Flair doesn't have the belts they say he has, and Ted Turner himself comes in and officiates the contract signing with no broken arm. Thankfully, Hogan didn't hurt him too bad the last time they met. Ted seemed to be in good health. Hogan cut him off, telling him he doesn't have a Hogan signs right away, but Flair dances around it. Talks about how he should be honored to be sitting with Ted Turner, a man who's made Flair a millionaire many times over. Hogan cut him off, telling him that he doesn't have a choice but to sign the contract, saying that he couldn't even leave the building without the Hulkamaniacs tearing him apart. Things broke down into a shouting match quickly between these two, but were separated before things could get hostile. They honestly said quite a lot here, yet very little. To Flair, this is about proving definitively that he's the greatest to ever do it. And Hogan, I suppose, is out to prove that he's being undermined by Flair, but it's not quite landing for me that way. Oh yeah, tell you something counter. Words. Up by 2 from Hogan, yet again. I'm honestly unsure as to how this match is going to go. I can't see Hogan losing his first match back, but Flair dropping the unified title right after unifying them, probably going to be a non-finish and wait till the next pay-per-view if you ask me. We return to the arena with a We Want Hogan chant before we get a lengthy recap of the closing moments of Clash. We get the first edition of the Bash the Beach Control Center. So both world title and US title matches were set. For some reason, Ricky Steamboat is getting a shot at Steve Austin. I may have missed something on WCW main events that would have made that make more sense, because Ricky Steamboat hasn't really done anything since his program with Flair a few months back, at least not on Saturday night. We get a promotional clip of Shaq doing very poor Hogan promo ripping on Ric Flair. It was also clarified that Steve Austin did in fact keep the title after the board of directors came to the conclusion that he is the rightful champion. Guess that makes sense. My earlier hopes are shattered as Pretty Wonderful are announced to be challenging Jack and Kevin for the tag titles, and the fact that they're getting a title shot so soon tells me they might actually be winning them. Oh dear. Also confirmed is Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck versus Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson. They were quick to fill out this card, and I can appreciate that. We still have over 3 weeks until this pay-per-view, but they got half the card set already, even if half of those set matches don't have a build to them. We return, and I say that knowing that some of these matches don't need a build, but at the same time, some do. We return to the ring for the Ricky Steamboat entrance, my favorite part of his performances. 80 Steamboat is amazing. 90 Steamboat is good. He gets a nice warm-up match against Buddy Wayne to get some steam going for him on TV, presumably. He chooses to slow his own pace with some rest holds, particularly when the crowd is chanting for him. But this was by no means a bad match. I'd say it was exactly what it should have been. He fired up with a series of chops, a back suplex, and a diving crossbody for the win. I like the cover he won with. Draped his weight very well for the pin. I wish I could say more. I have all the respect for Ricky Steamboat and the innovation he brought to the high-flying style in American wrestling, but his matches feel very cookie-cutter when they aren't against another name. So we take a break and return for our main event of this very short Saturday night. That being Harlem Heat versus Dusty Rhodes and Arn Anderson in the latter's debut as a team. This match was good for establishing these two as a unit, taking on Harlem Heat, who really helped bring them together last Saturday night. Dustin Rhodes is very excited. Arn is very intense. It works. And sure enough, this match was a quick but fierce bout. I dug it personally. A lot of brawling and a lot of quick tags. Dustin and Arn eventually pick apart Kane of Harlem Heat, and Dustin got off a bulldog on him, but Cole immediately broke up the cover attempt, so things got a little chaotic again. The ending came when Harlem Heat attempted to double team Arn, only for Dustin to hold up Cole's foot on the outside, underneath the bottom rope, and Kane gets dropped with the DDT for the win. Very fun, quick match on this return show, and that was it for the evening. Well, there was a bit between Heenan and Shivani about there being no WCW main event this week, and I guess Heenan didn't like that. It was like a 45-minute episode loaded with rundowns, recaps, and quick matches, so a very brief review of this episode as a result. Good for it, though. Especially when these podcasts are on as much of a crunch as they are already. Oh, man. So, I hope you enjoy this week's Talkkcade. The Tell You Something counter was up to 5 this episode, I believe. All Hogan, baby. Would you look at that? No WWF this time, just like no WCW last week, but the next episode of Talkkcade should be back to our normal lineup. Still, quite a busy 7 days for American wrestling overall. Definitely feel like the turning point of an era coming on here across the 3 promotions. But yes, as always, do drop a thumbs up on this video because it helps us so much being discovered. I cannot explain to you how much it helps. Really, it is kind of dumb how much it does for us. Do make sure to keep that bell on for notifications. You want to catch us when we go live. The several times a week we go live. We've got a lot of watch-alongs coming up in this particular week of wrestling in modern day. So do check that out. And do leave a comment. Leave your thoughts. Let us know how you feel about it. Let us know how you're feeling about the show. We want to hear your thoughts, get some chatter going, But that all being said, I'm AdvyDeven. Till next time. Peace.